Hey everybody, welcome to the week 2 discussion board. Now, this topic is a really interesting one. I think it's a very relevant one as well, and it's really one of my favorite discussion board topics for the entire class. We're going to get into a lot of really interesting ones, kind of some boring ones too, perhaps, but we'll have a lot of really interesting conversations. But this one is a really interesting one. We're talking about Slacktivism. Now, what do we mean by Slacktivism? First, read the articles, watch the video that is attached before you post. Slacktivism essentially is what's called a portmanteau. It's two words, slacker and activism, mashed together to form one new term. So the idea essentially is you do all of your activism online, posting a certain thing, tweeting a certain thing, changing your profile pic in Facebook or on Instagram, and boom, you're an activist and you really care about the world, right? But does that really mean a lot, right? So for the topic of Bring Back Our Girls, you'll hear the horrifying story of what happened to all these girls in Nigeria. And a lot of people felt like they were doing great things by posting something on Facebook and that's about it. But is that real activism? Now we don't have to have that be the subject. It doesn't have to be Bring Back Our Girls. There's a lot of things going on in our world right now, but I think Slacktivism infects a lot of these topics just as much, right? People change their profile pic and all of a sudden they care about everything. And really what's going on is they want you to know that they care very deeply about something, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about. What is Slacktivism? What impact does it have on you? Have you fallen into this kind of thing before? I think many of us probably have. And I think ultimately, broader than that, what does it say about us on social media? Are we really lazier thinkers because of things like this? You know, you think back to the ice bucket challenge, the ALS ice bucket challenge, and people were pouring ice on their heads, and it was all for Lou Gehrig's disease. Now, how many people really knew about Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, or were giving money for research, or how many people were just pouring the stuff over their heads because they wanted to post it on Facebook because it was funny and they'd get a lot of likes and all sorts of stuff like that? That's what we're talking about. So does our computer technology essentially make us lazier thinkers? Does it make us lazier people? I think that there is something to that, but this is where we're going to talk about it. Think about your own life. Think about those in your own kind of social circle. How do they interact with social media, and what impact does it have on them? Essentially, does it change who they are or their perception of themselves? This is a wide-ranging discussion, a very interesting one as well. So I think it's going to take us in a lot of very interesting directions, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what all of you have to say this week. Thanks, folks.